Hi there, this is Elise Benin, your marketing mentor. And this is the podcast for you if and only if you are ready to leave the feast or famine syndrome behind, and I mean for good. Marketing works when you do it. I hope you've heard me say that. And September and October is prime marketing time. Before everything slows down for the holidays, this is when people are spending budgets they don't want to lose and pulling the trigger on projects they need to get done. And I just love watching the members of my Simplest Marketing program get their marketing done. That's outreach, networking, and content marketing. And we are seeing the fruits of their labor. One in particular is Scott Hull, who calls himself a visual ambassador. He matches big brands with illustrators and illustrative designers. And in today's episode, Scott generously shares what's working for him as he finishes the year stronger than I think he thought he would. So listen and learn. All right, Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And as I always do, please begin by introducing yourself.
I think I'll start out by giving kind of a description of what I do, as you've said, because when the marketing and creative leaders are under a lot of pressure, trying to deliver ideas, and products and understanding fast. And they're trying to find that right illustrative designer. It's like looking through a needle in a haystack is what it comes down to, because there's too many options looking for that type of person. There's not enough time, and the risk of picking the right person who doesn't get it is pretty scary. Well, that's where I come in. I connect decision makers, mainly the creative and the marketing people, with insanely talented and experienced collaborative illustrative designers. Who understand how to turn a visual, into results. And I've been doing it for over 40 years. And we've been very fortunate in such. But we're seeing a lot of twists and turns that are taking in the business, which are pretty common. And we'll get into that here in a few minutes. So I'll let you start firing questions.
All right. And you and I have known each other for many years. I don't know, 20, 30, maybe.
Well, when did you first start the HOW Design Conference? Because that's the first time I met you.
I first spoke at HOW in 1993. So
that's when I met you. Was it in San Francisco?
I can't remember actually where it was.
No.
I think it was in Chicago. My first one was in Chicago.
Okay. Yeah. Because I spoke a couple times there. But yeah, I know that was the first time I met you, and it was intriguing with what you were doing, and now to see you how many years later, and we're both still around, that's unheard of.
And if I remember correctly, in a way, you didn't explicitly say this, but you are an agent of illustrators and designers, right? And at the time, I was still kind of figuring out what I was doing. And so there was a quality of agenting or potential agenting that was what people needed. I decided not to go in that direction. I decided instead to teach people. But I don't know, maybe just start by speaking to that idea of being a representative of an artist in a commercial context.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I started out as a graphic designer, and it was the days of the art studios, which were, looking back, it's pretty fascinating. And so we had, I think it was like 9 illustrators and 7 designers on staff, and did a lot of work for Procter & Gamble and other large companies. And so that was pretty phenomenal at that point. And like young, naive, maverick people, after about 3 years or 4 years of it, it was like freelance was becoming very popular. The fax machine, or at that time, the Quip machine, was starting in. So communications were broadening out. And so I got to thinking about it, and there was a group that wanted to start a new studio, typical jump ship. And it was like, I know, I want no part of it. Dealing and herding cats and trying to deal with these egotistical folks. So we came up with the concept of becoming an agent. And so each worked individually. And then I became just like a sports agent or an actor's agent. And so I handled the talent. And then I would go out, secure work, help develop portfolios, and basically built relationships is what it all came down to. And I think that's why we've lasted as long as we have, is being fair, being honest, having tremendous talent, being very blessed to be associated with talent, and being able to curate their careers and such. And so we've seen a lot of, obviously in 40 years, a lot of ups and downs. And like I say, there's a train wreck every 7 years. And so far, it's holding well true.
And I want to get into a little bit the evolution of your business, but I also want to tee it up by saying that one of the reasons I invited you to be a guest on the podcast is because you're a member of the S&P Plus program, and we're near the end of the year, and we're focused on finishing the year strong. And you, I happen to know, are finishing the year super strong. And you sent me a note that basically outlined at the time 8 active projects from, big companies. And so I just wanted you to somehow kind of start by talking about how are you ending the year strong and what exactly are you doing? And I know that it's cumulative, right? You talked about relationships and the value of relationships. And I imagine that because you have all those super strong relationships, that is one of the main reasons that you're ending the year strong. But just respond to that in whatever way makes sense.
Sure. Well, like I said, I'm based in Dayton, Ohio. And so I'm not in, a big area, but in Dayton, Ohio, one time we had the largest 90-minute market, which means you basically can drive 90 minutes away and really hit the majority of the marketplace in the country. I did a fair amount of travel to obviously New York and other places, and did a lot of one-on-one. I enjoyed it. It was fun to get out and hobnob. And I always tried to use the philosophy, I'm not here to sell you. I'm here to give you 15 minutes of recess. So, you carry your portfolio and show your wares. And I always try to use it in terms of learning more about what their needs and such were. So that was a big blessing. Over this past year, obviously the last few years, as so many of you are facing, business is just, it's tanked. It's not the 90s anymore. In the 90s, at least the world of design and illustration were coming on strong. And even design to a point, I think in probably the teens, design was doing fairly well, but there was seemed to be a shift in the terms of the leadership, or the design thinking was becoming stronger and such. And so we have kind of started to embrace that. But really what has made our close the year out strong, because I'll tell you, the last 18 months have been real stinkers. And we have, in the last 18 months, normally we'll see maybe 2 or 3 companies either downsize or even close their doors. But in the last 18 months, I figured that 10 clients that we had worked with have either closed their doors, they have downsized, or it just shifted their whole philosophy and such. And I'm not talking about little 1 and 2 man people. I'm talking about AT&T. I'll probably get shot for saying this stuff. AT&T, Dannon Yogurt, went from a staff of 42 down to 6. Mm. And so we're seeing more of that happening. And on that, so that was one reason why I signed up for your SMP course, was I just needed, rejuvenation and just to hear what other people were doing. Because, after doing this for 40 years, you think you've got the sales process down. You think that everybody knows you, and there is really nothing different. But with all these changes taking place, everything is different, but yet everything is the same. Mm-hmm. And so by being associated with it, I realized that, especially talking to Andy,
Andy Brenitz.
yes, just listening to him and on outreach and that type of thing, which gave a lot of encouragement and made me realize that needed to go back to what we were doing. Like, for instance, 10 years ago, our mailing list was 18,000 people. Ridiculous. And then we started getting in, doing more CRM processes and so on. And then we reduced it down to about 4,000 to 5 is where we're kind of at right now. And even now I'm looking at things differently because listening to Andy and the group talk, it is, in today's market, it is geared more towards relationships, more one-on-one, and dealing more with solving problems and making beautiful paintings and such. And so with that, I think what has helped us was, Andy and the team, Lisa and Bonnie and so on, really were promoting, outreach and writing emails and being more aggressive in what you're doing. And so, I went back to doing that again and trying to do it more on a regular basis. And I think it's just, as you say, Elise, it's momentum.
Yeah.
And with that momentum, I think, I'll be honest with you, man, the first 6-7 months, they were stinkers.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I wanted to continue doing this. But then there at the end, like all of a sudden, 2 weeks into September, the floodgates started opening. And one of the largest jobs that we ever worked on was through Olipop, which is a soft drink, and they're getting ready to develop, or we're helping them develop a new character. And it's all focused around content marketing. But there were 55 illustrations that needed to be done in a short amount of time. So that was like, hallelujah for that. And then that same week, we ended up getting Spindrift, the agencies for Spindrift, calling us to do some flavor illustrations for that. And then we ended up Harvard Medical was doing a website focused around mental health. And so we ended up doing the illustrations for their, branding of their look and such. And then there's been others come in too. So why did it come in all of a sudden? Could have been economics, people realizing that, we're getting ready to go into the fourth quarter and we got to spend the money.
Yeah.
I don't have a rhyme to reason. So I'm looking at you at least to give me those answers. But I would say that it was because of the relationships, because that's one thing I've been doing is looking at it and saying, why? Why did I get a call from these companies now? And, companies I really don't even know. But what I found out, it was all referring back to referrals. And that was what Andy talked on, I think it was last Monday, was referrals. And that's what I've decided this coming year is, as you said, finish strong, but go into 2026 strong. Well, my whole philosophy is going to be referrals.
Okay. Let me just try to respond to some of what you said.
I'm sorry. I'm just...
No. There's a lot there.
You've got me wound up here. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. That's all right. I guess I first want to say thank you for telling the truth, number one, about how the last 6 to 18 months has been, because I really don't think there are a lot of people out there telling the truth. And I am a big proponent of the truth. And I don't like sugarcoating things and making it seem like things are better than they are. So I think for a lot of people, I won't say everyone, because some people do well when things are not going well. But for a lot of people, it has been very, very difficult, especially the first half of 2025. So I appreciate your honesty. And I think I also appreciate your consistency and the fact that you have just kept showing up and kept doing the marketing, because when things aren't going well and the marketing doesn't seem to be working, often that's when people give up.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge mistake. And the people in my circle know that, and hopefully they give up less than other people would. I know it's hard to keep it going, but that's why we're here. And so I think that one of the things you're talking about that I thought was really interesting. So maybe we can focus on this mix of what's old is new again,
Hmm.
and how, as you said, you had a mailing list. You used to mail to them on a regular basis. There were 18,000 people on that list. And then it sounded like you intentionally whittled it down to 4 or 5,000, and
Hmm.
then started to get more aggressive and proactive. I would think I would use the word proactive and assertive, perhaps, because a lot of people don't like the idea of being aggressive, even though that may be what
Well,
you have
I
to
would call
do.
it focused, is what I would call it.
Okay, focused, interesting, right? And doubling down on outreach and relationships, and then the idea of referrals. I want to come back to that because often
Hmm.
referrals gets confused with word of mouth, where people think you don't have to do anything. But I know you're talking about something very proactive as it relates to referrals as well. So start, if you would, with what you did with your list.
Well, with the 5,000, matter of fact, we're going through an episode right now because I'm moving my CRM platform to another service because of expense. And as I learned through SMP, it was like, why do I have this this big car with all these bells and whistles when all I'm trying to do is get from point A to point B?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I realized with the mailing list. How many people am I really working with? How many does it take for an illustrator, a designer to have a good year? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started really trying to fine tune and try to reach out to those key people on a regular basis. Now, when I say regular basis, I'm not saying every week. I'm saying every quarter tops,
Mm-hmm.
at least twice a year, just to let them know that, hey, I'm there. And also to let them know that bringing up, pain points that they might be dealing with. And because of doing this for so many years, also trying to get them to see that we might, or I might have the solution to them. Because one of the biggest issues I've had in my business has been I've always been behind the scenes. The artists have always taken front and center. And, I've had people say, well, with all the knowledge that you have and such, people will be interested. And you're basically, artists are going to come and go, but your service has been going on for 45 years, for heaven's sakes. And so that's when I started putting two and two together and saying, well, then I better quit focusing on helping young people who really don't understand how to commission work. And I better focus because our artists and talent are, they've been at it for, 15 plus years. And so they are expertise or have expertise in that field. And so that's why we ended up kind of not downsizing. And that's what I'm looking at now is having a good, strong list, but then doing it in such a way, and this is where I'm getting into referrals,
Mm-hmm.
doing it in such a way. And that's what Bonnie and Lisa and even George talked
Mm-hmm.
about a bit was how do you go about doing that? And Andy's done a really nice job putting together some prompts on writing it. But what I'm trying to do now with my CRM system is how can I um, start to build curiosity and start to make them feel like, we are the go-to people. Like I said in my opening, that we're the go-to people. If you have this problem, then we own it, and we're who you need to be talking to.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh,
Yeah,
sorry, I'm getting to ramble here. So,
that's all right. No, no, it's good. Um, so maybe we can focus a little bit then on your approach with referrals that you've been doing and are planning to do into 2026, because you referenced your CRM, which is a customer relationship management
mhm,
system. And I imagine that's a combination of outreach and content marketing, which are two of the
mhm.
three tools in the SMP. Talk a little bit about the details there. What exactly are you doing? Are you planning to do? How do those tools work together?
What I'm finding is obviously Instagram and LinkedIn are very important. Facebook, not so much anymore
Right.
for us. X, forget that one. But really, also working with you, I'm realizing that LinkedIn really is pretty robust. The biggest issue that I see we have is the fact that for about 35 plus years, we've been licensing lists. And it was a company that deals with creatives, agencies, in-house brands, and so on. But what I'm
I remember
finding,
the list.
yeah. So what I'm finding is their list isn't that strong anymore. And I get it because when we used to put our list together, I had a couple people that would make phone calls and talk to the creative secretary, and then the creative secretary would fax, not email, because we didn't have email that would fax that list to us. And so we had the people, what brands they were working for, and so it was pretty good. Well, now it's so fracted because after the pandemic, it's like I'm working on a client with a client right now. Well, I have the account person in New York, and it's all the same agency. I have the design person in San Francisco, and then I have another person that we deal with in Cincinnati. How can I get their mailing list? Or I can get them, so it's becoming more difficult. So the process that we're doing in building our list is basically trying to use LinkedIn more. And then when we send out an email or I have a conversation, maybe somebody in the group, or I pick up the tone. And what I usually try to do, let's say if I am on the phone and it's somebody that I've worked with for some time and I feel like we have a good rapport with, well, I'll ask them there towards the end of the conversation. I said, yeah, you've been great to work with, and I'm trying to find people just like you. Is there somebody that you could recommend that would be looking for opportunities to use illustration in their processes and such? And because by saying, I want somebody just like you, what that does is makes them feel confident that I respect them, which I do, and that they're more willing to think and give you that on the spot opportunity. So that's one trick of the trade that I use.
And that works.
It's so far it has.
Mm-hmm. And then what do you do with that information or that person?
Usually what I'll do then is if I think it's a hot lead, I'll send it, that so-and-so recommended I reach out to you, or I'll ask that individual if they mind doing an introduction. Mm-hmm. I try to make it easy as possible. And so then, that's what we'll do. We'll do an introduction. And that's what we're doing right now is trying to finish up just a very simple introduction pitch and let them look at it on their own time. It'll be maybe 3-minute long. It'll kind of explain what we do and here's how we go about doing it. But what we'll try to do is to find out first before we do it is what problems are they facing. And so that's the big part.
Okay. And when you say a 3-minute pitch, is that a video or is that a call?
I like to try to do a call, but in some cases, you can't. So I might attach a video. We have a video made up, or just basically a little slide presentation that they can, almost like a carousel that you would get in Instagram or something of that nature. Those seem to be pretty effective. Probably the best effective tool that we're using that I'm seeing working well are testimonies. That's what people are intrigued by. When I post a testimony on Instagram, it seems like it gets some of the higher hits and such. And, we haven't been doing enough of it. First of all, because the first part of the year was so slow that we didn't have anything to testify about or get testimonies about. Mm-hmm. Just joking. But that's one thing that I think is a real plus because, if you go to Amazon to buy something, what do? You start looking at the reviews. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think reviews are becoming more and more popular as sales tools.
I agree with that for sure. They seem to be super effective. And so then there's the question of how do you, even if someone who wants to give you a testimonial or an endorsement or a review, like it takes their time to do it. Do you have tricks for making it easy for people? Do you just, harass them until they give it to you? What's your strategy?
Yeah, of course. What I usually do is I send them samples. Hey, here's 3 samples of what other people have written. And all I'm looking for are basically 2 or 3 sentences. Mm-hmm. Some people say then they'll write it themselves and then send it to the person saying, would it be okay to share it like this? I try not to do that, but I have, because if I've had a conversation, I'm taking notes, and there are little snippets of that conversation, I think, where they're giving us praise. I will take it and have it massaged and maybe share it with them and say, something like this. And if you like it, well, we'll just go ahead and apply it. And if you're okay, we'll put your name to it. But yeah, you can't press them, because like the people I'm trying to work with, more of the C-level, they're slammed.
Right. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about the future and AI in whatever way makes the most sense. But I guess I'll just start with a question, a very general question. Like, what do you see as the future for illustration and design? And where does AI fit in? And where do you think or see that, real images from real illustrators and designers are going to continue?
Oh, that's the big open question these days, is the trends. We all know that AI is coming, and it'll end up basically wiping out the mediocre talent. I mean, that's a given, but it means you got to step up and work on your thinking and your thinking skills, because, like I said earlier, that you as an illustrator or designing, just making pretty pictures isn't going to cut it anymore. You've got to provide strategy and thinking, strategy thinking behind it, because that's what we're seeing is, why we call ourselves illustrator designers is because at one time or another, that person was probably an art director or a designer themselves. And all we're doing is almost like the old pushpin studio days. Instead of using photography and such, we are providing basically an illustrative solution to that problem, and we're collaborating, with the company and such. So that's kind of a big part of it. Now, from the dark side, because technology and AI, what you're going to see is mounds and mounds of carbon copies and clones, everywhere. And the issue with that is that marketing is going to basically flock to AI, because they're thinking they're going to be saving money and such. And so you're going to start seeing more of the same tools in social media and all. But if you can differentiate yourself and really move forward with it, you're going to position yourself as being knowledgeable and being able to provide advice. And that's what I think companies are going to be looking for, with AI. Because, like I said before, AI is just basically, you're going to see clones, people swiping from the same sources and such. And things are going to be looking like that. Because the other thing that I'm seeing too, as I said earlier, with all the downsizing, it's taking away the design thinking that really, I think IBM really started promoting design thinking. Mm-hmm. And so what that's doing is disrupting, let's just call it your innovation muscle. There we go. The companies are ruining their innovation muscle. They're doing away with the creatives, only thinking that they're saving money on the bottom line. But in reality, 2 to 3 years later, everything is shrinking, and they're going to start to saying, well, why isn't our brand doing better? And I mean, we're seeing that already. Matter of fact, I just had a refrigerator repairman. We had the refrigerator for 6 weeks, and he was really, I was getting excited. Matter of fact, I should have been preparing for this better. But I was fascinated by what he was saying, because he was talking about the chain of command and how Samsung and GE and LG are basically trying to cut corners to make more money. And it's really turning into lack of innovation, because they're trying to cookie cutter and template everything together. And that's the same thing that I'm seeing with companies today. So if you can differentiate yourself, and use AI, don't get me wrong. That's why I said everything is changing, our tools and so on, AI, but we still remain the same. And what the same is basically, we still have to have clients. We still have to have those relationships, those referrals, and as they say, relationships are rocket ships. And so that's where I'm saying everything's the same. And that's why I've enjoyed working with you, at least, is the fact that I've noticed that it hasn't changed in 40-some years. We still are are trying to serve the people. It's just that the tools have changed a bit, but it still comes down of relationship building.
Are you saying then, in terms of the downsizing, that there's an opportunity for designers and illustrators and writers to come in
Oh
with
yeah,
the thinking that is being lost in
yeah.
the attempt to save money?
Oh, exactly. Because I think within the group there seems to be quite a few writers, and I know that a few have lost clients because of AI, because companies thinking, well, I don't need a writer to do this. I can just run it through AI and I can have one people instead of outsourcing all these different creatives. But what they're finding is that's not true. Now, you as a writer, the advantage that you're going to have is you can work a lot faster with AI. You can end up finding more information quicker and so on. And just like content providers, who would have these huge staffs and deep pockets to do it. Well, now they can use it basically three people to do that. But the whole situation is you got to humanize it, and that's what AI cannot do. And that's why I think writers just have to shift their thinking and start selling curiosity instead of a hard product and such.
And one of the other things you said was that you find out you've positioned your firm as problem solvers, and so you speak
Mhm.
to the problems. And my question is, because it sounds like you're saying you can differentiate yourself from the same old, and from the mediocre, and from the AI by addressing the problems and providing solutions to the problems. But I think one of the places people get stuck is, well, how do I know what
Yeah.
problems they have? So how do you think about that, and what do you do about that?
Yeah, that's a great question because um, you're so used, or you're in the day-to-day type of operations, and you think that everything is the same. But it's like you put in all these years, and you start to see the pivots. You start to see things, starting to shift. Just like I said earlier, it used to be you showed your portfolio, you had beautiful pictures in it, and they go ooh ah, isn't that great? And then they would hire you because they were looking for that particular style or something of that nature. But in today's market, they could care less about beauty. What they're looking at is, are you solving the solution? Are you getting that attention from our audience and that type of thing? So that's where I see, really trying to differentiate. What is that one thing that your company is all about, and what are you going after, and what is making you different than your competition?
And when you
Uh,
say you there, you're talking about the client, or are you
yeah,
talking about the creative service provider?
I'm talking about the creative service provider.
Okay.
Uh, the client has to realize that for themselves, and it first has to start with us, or with the one person, and that's why I'm seeing even personal branding has become so popular.
Hmm.
You're no longer a company; you're basically your own company. Whether you are working for a huge company or a solo performer.
Hmm.
So that personal brand is important, and what you do is important. That's your resume. It's what makes you, or what has been your successes, and not a list of here's my education, but here is the successes that I've had, and here's how I helped this company go from this to that.
And so, just circling back to the question of how do you find out what the problems are, or the main problem that they need solved, that you could propose the thinking to help
Mhm.
solve? How do you find that out with your market?
Well, that's where AI comes in. I'm finding that being very intriguing, and that's why Elise AI.
Artificial Elise.
Yeah, there we go.
That's how
Sorry.
I call her, Artificial
Well,
Elise.
you hit it. I forgot the brand name of that. Using programs like that have been very interesting because I can ask, what are from character development, what did Cracker Barrel, have to deal with, and what were some of the issues? So writing a good prompt is extremely important, and then I can come back and kind of analyze it. So, I mean, how long would that have taken me to do all those interviews and such, where AI can help you streamline it a lot quicker?
Hmm.
And so that's one of the big tools, and how I'm using AI is just how to write the right prompts.
Okay. 2 more questions. I want to just circle back also to this question, big picture question about the future of design and illustration. I guess I would say,
Mm-hmm.
is there a future for design and illustration? What do you
Oh,
think?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Design, most definitely. But as I said earlier, you've got to watch it because, just keeping focused on the human environment, and staying close to the customer and getting insight, and then, how to use AI to work with the customer faster. That's where I see it going. In terms of illustration, yeah, there's going to be a big change because it used to be with editorial and such, there was a big market in that. It didn't pay as great, but you had a lot of it. And now with AI, you're going to be seeing more content being developed, visuals being developed by AI and all. But what you're going to have happen is the thinking isn't going to be there. Everything's going to look cookie cutter and, pretty much the same. So if you can, kind of ride that wave and move forward, but you've also got to look at where's your audience shifting to? Because it's like what we're dealing with. Let's take magazines, for instance. They're pretty well gone. And, but what we have found is there's still alumni magazines out there and they pay pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking for, good writing. They're looking for good visuals and so on. So, that's a market that you've just got to twist and focus a little bit more on. The fact that printing is basically shrunk big time. And what we have found is packaging. There's still, and there always will be need for packaging, which is still print. And so we're doing a lot of work with packaging design firms and in-house design firms. Mm-hmm. So, that's a big one.
And what about environmental graphics? What do you see?
Well, obviously, we're seeing a lot of murals and communications. We're seeing a lot of companies doing murals in-house. We just, last Thursday, I was just down. We did artwork for the Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And the whole premise that they were trying to do with their environmental graphics was when the child walks into the hospital, they're relaxed, they're calm, and they're using, beautiful colors and great organic designs, animals. We did artwork, murals that was almost like Where's Waldo, where you would see animals and that type of thing. So, you can't get that through AI.
Right.
And so there are opportunities like that. It's just, thinking ahead of the game and where's the next move going to be?
All right. Last question. I want to know what the most important lesson is that you have learned over your 40-ish years.
Oh, hang with the right people. Well, I'd have to say, like I said earlier, focus on the human environment, stay close to your customer with insight, by letting them know, what you do and what problems you solve in that. And then you can use AI to continue that insight. So, really it's just staying face to face, making sure that they know that you're there. It's like we've been dealing with, I'll name names, Lowe's. And that's been a freaking disaster because they have forgot what customer service is all about. And even, fast food restaurants, customer service, and just be human. I would say that's the biggest lesson I've learned. And hence that's why I am learning more, through your S&P classes too. I guess that's it. Be human.
I love that. Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Scott. Tell the people where they can find you online.
Online, I'm at Scott Hall. That's HULL.com. That's my website. And then Instagram, it's Scott, B as in boy, Hall. And I think my LinkedIn is also Scott Hall. But there is the bass player for the Pig Destroyers that also has the name Scott Hall. So, but he seems like a nice guy. So that's it.
All right.
So please reach out and say hey.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elise. Appreciate the time.
Instead of a baby step, I asked Scott to share one lesson he'd learned over the years. And he said something I've been saying a lot on this podcast lately. Be human. Easier said than done, I think, but super important these days, right? So if you want my help figuring all this out, I hope you'll take advantage of my free mentoring session. You can find that and lots more resources, including the simplest marketing plan at marketing-mentor.com. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time.